I'm Natalia Bonner. Welcome to the Free Motion Filler Frenzy. In this fun free stitch along, I am going to be teaching you how to free motion quilt 12 awesome designs. We're going to be starting today with one of my favorite designs to start on, loops. From there, we're going to then move into a more geometric design, and we'll kind of work like that through the next 6 lessons. Today though, before we load our quilts onto our quilting machines, let's do just a little bit of marking. I'm going to be quilting on this awesome panel that I picked up from honestfabrics.com. You can pick up one over there as well. Just search for my name, Natalia Bonner. I am using the 50 by 60 inch size. Now, to join this stitch along and quilt along with me, you don't have to stitch on that panel. Pull some fat quarters from your stash, make some quilt sandwiches, and let's get stitching. Before we do though, let's get that marking done. To do the markings, there are a few tools that you will need besides the long arm machine or a sit-down quilting machine. I am going to use the blue Mark Be Gone marker to do my markings. In the center of my panel, I'm going to mark a circle just to give it a little bit more interest, and I'm also going to be marking some straight lines that act kind of as a divider, a separator, just to help me define the spaces on my panel where I'm going to be machine quilting. To mark the circle in the center, I'm going to be using my Sway 5 machine quilting ruler. You can pick that up on our website, peaceandquilt.com. I'm also going to be using a nice long rotary type ruler. My rotary ruler, you want to make sure that it does have a 45-degree angle marked on it, as well as a 60-degree angle marked on your ruler. We're going to use those angles to help out to keep those lines nice and straight and the perfect spacing. Once I've got my quilting all complete, of course we're going to mist away those marked lines. So I'm going to be using my Peace and Quilt misting spray bottle to mist away those lines. Alrighty friends, the thread that I'm going to be using here on the top is so fine. I'm going to change colors throughout this whole stitch along. So I'm going to be using 8 different thread colors. So fine on the top and bottom line in my bobbin. I'm going to be doing all of my quilting here on my Gamble 22-inch machine. Yes, because this is free motion quilting, it's all going to be hand guided. I will use my Sway 5 machine quilting ruler to stitch around each of the orange slice pieces. So if you're not working on a panel, you don't even need a ruler to quilt around those. You can just free motion quilt this whole entire stitch along. There's still time to join this stitch along. Anybody can join. Just hop over to our website, peaceandquilt.com. You can enroll over there, and you can also pick up the batting that I'm using here, which is Quilters Dream batting. You can pick up the threads, and we've also created an awesome design workbook that contains our favorite QR codes that you can scan with your mobile device, and it'll take you right to the video where I'll be teaching you step by step how to machine quilt one of these awesome designs. All right friends, let's get started by marking our quilt top. Let's start out by finding the center on the panel and marking that center. I'll do this by using a rotary type ruler. I'm going to lay the ruler right across the center so those points intersect each other, and then I'm going to mark a T right across that center point on my orange slice. Once I have that T all marked, now I'm going to use my Sway 5 machine quilting ruler and add a few markings. So first I'll lay my ruler on there just to make sure that's about the size of circle that I want. Now I'm going to use that funky end on the Sway 5 machine quilting ruler. That end has marked on it a straight line that indicates that the end of the Sway 5 machine quilting ruler is a true 5-inch circle. So I'm lining it up, those marked lines on the ruler, with the lines on my quilt, and as you can see here, I'm turning it and marking those curved lines. So that's a true 5-inch circle that I've marked there. When I'm ready to machine quilt that center section, then I'll use the circle on the opposite end of the ruler to quilt a perfect 5-inch circle. Now I'm going to do a bit of marking to define my spaces where I'm going to be machine quilting my background fillers. I'm using a long rotary type ruler here, and I'm lining that ruler up so that the 45-degree angle on the ruler and also the 60-degree marked line on my ruler intersect my orange slices. By doing this, it's going to make it so that I'll mark a straight line all the way to the outside, but it's going to make kind of these triangle, like pizza slices that I am going to quilt each of these 12 designs in. So as I work my way around the orange slice, you'll notice that the 45-degree angle, I'm lining up right here so it intersects the point on that light blue orange slice. Then I'm also lining up so the 60-degree marked line is right on top of my previous marked line. And I'll repeat that process. Notice how I had to create some little squiggles there? I actually marked my second line wrong. So when I do that, instead of misting it away, I'll just mark some little squiggles, and then when I'm quilting along, I'll mist away all of those marked lines. I'll repeat that process, marking those lines all the way around my orange slice. Now, if you're just quilting on fat quarters or something else, you will not need to do any marking. You are ready to start quilting. Now that I have my marking complete, let's get quilting. The first design that we're going to start with are loops. I love learning to quilt or teaching you how to quilt using loops. Why do I love them? Because it's a great way to gain control of your machine, to get comfortable with your machine, and there's really no rules. Yeah, I try to alternate directions when I'm quilting them, but if my lines end up crossing over each other or something wild happens, I can always just quilt more loops and end up with a beautiful design. One thing when quilting these loops, really any design that you're quilting, make sure that you're consistent with your scale and density. So I don't want to quilt an area of loops where the loops are all really tiny and then cover the rest of the quilt in large loops. I want to be consistent with my designs. As I'm quilting these loops, you'll notice that I stitch in kind of an over-under pattern. So what that means is I stitch over and then under, alternating the direction of my circles as I quilt them out. I try to be really random and kind of quilt in like a snake type pattern. I feel like I end up overall with a better look. It looks more consistent and more even versus trying to go in lines. As I'm quilting these loops, you will notice that I've not quilted over any of my circles or my orange slices on this quilt. I am going to quilt some different free motion designs in there, and I will also outline around each of those shapes. But I am going to quilt all of my background fillers across my quilt, and then once that's complete, I will switch thread colors and I'm going to quilt all of those orange slices and circles using white thread. The thread that I'm using here on the top is So Fine, color number 471. And in my bobbin, I have bottom line color number 623. I love how these loops are turning out. Such a fun design. Practice, practice, practice this design. Even quilt it across a whole entire quilt. By the time you finish that quilt, you definitely will be feeling a lot more confident with your machine quilting abilities. You can also start to add fun little fills into these loops if you're starting to feel like you want to try even more. I like to add in hearts and stars. You can even add in leaves and other fun shapes to really dress it up. These loops were so much fun to quilt. I can't wait to see yours. Don't forget to share your progress in our Peace and Quilt Show and Tell Facebook group. Alrighty, let's move on and quilt another free motion design, blocks. To define each of my spaces, I am going to stitch just a squiggly line down or right across those marked lines that I marked originally with my blue Mark Be Gone marker. I'll do this as I work my way through this quilt on each of those defined spaces. In this space, we're going to be quilting blocks. This is a fun, very forgiving geometric design. Because I do all of my quilting on a Gammill 22-inch machine, you'll see when I'm quilting, I like to start left to right, top to bottom. This is your quilt. You can quilt it in whichever direction you want. If you're working on a sit-down machine or a domestic machine, you're probably going to be starting in the center and then working out from there. I'm also using my ruler foot here on my machine. I don't need to have the ruler foot on for this design, but because I do so much ruler work, I like to leave it on there. It's something that I'm used to looking at, and the visibility is what I'm used to, so I most often leave my ruler foot on my machine. Now, let's stitch out this design. I start out with a foundation, so my first little block. Then from there, I simply add echoes. Because I have that ruler foot here on my machine, I'm kind of using the side of my ruler foot as a guide. I'm not measuring, I'm not marking, I'm not making anything perfect, just kind of using the side of that foot to judge my space, which, because it is a 1/4 inch foot, it makes it so my lines are all about a 1/4 inch apart. So once I've stitched that first foundation, I just add echoes to that and just keep filling in and building off of itself. Once I have a few echoes, then I'll start another block and repeat that process. So it's basically just blocks with echoes. You'll notice on my corners, I make them a little bit round, so I don't stop. I just kind of round around the corners. Again, just a fun way to create more interest and fill in my spaces. Sometimes, like right now, when I get near the side, I'm going to end up with maybe just a few straight kind of echo lines. I want my blocks to fill in my space completely. When I get close to those circles, I'll continue quilting the same design. I almost want my circles to look as if they're appliqued right on top of this background filler. So I'll quilt right up to the side of them, but not stitch anything on those circles. Like with the loops, after all of my quilting is complete on the background section of this quilt, then I will come back and quilt on each of those circles and the orange slice. I'm stitching here on my Gamel 22-inch machine in the stitch regulated mode, and I have my stitch length set at 13 stitches per inch. Personal preference again, when you're starting out, try different modes on your machine. Try stitch lengths. Play around with your machine to find what works best for you. These first two designs were so much fun to quilt. I can't wait to see your progress. Don't forget to share in our Peace and Quilt Show and Tell Facebook group.